One night, while walking through the streets with his parents, Bruce Wayne saw an armed man approaching and, in order to protect his family, Thomas attacked him. At that moment he was shot, and then Martha, his wife, met the same end. That day Bruce saw the people he loved the most lose their lives, and during the funeral he went into the woods. Shaken by the elimination of his parents, the boy ran aimlessly until he fell into a deep hole. After the fall, he became unconscious and dreamed that he was being saved by thousands of bats, which carried him back to the surface. Decades later, in Metropolis, Bruce witnesses a major attack. A ship is destroying much of the city, so he calls Jack and orders his friend to get everyone out of the building owned by Wayne Financial. Meanwhile, the billionaire drives toward his company in an attempt to prevent the elimination of his employees. However, when he arrives on the scene, it is already too late, as the building has been broken in half by lasers. Minutes later, the survivors leave the ruined building and Bruce tries to help the injured get back on their feet. Among them is Wallace, whose legs are trapped under the rubble. The man cries out for help and Bruce manages to help him free himself. However, he can no longer feel his legs. After saving a little girl who was about to be crushed, the businessman asks where her mother is and discovers that the poor girl has just become an orphan, just like him. As he looks up into the sky, Bruce spots countless pieces of debris falling over the city and realizes that Superman is responsible for causing all the disaster that has claimed hundreds of lives. 18 months later, somewhere in the Indian Ocean, fragments of an alien rock are found, and inside them is a rare mineral called kryptonite. In Nairobi, a city in Africa, Lois Lane arrives to do an interview with General Amaya and is met by a photographer named Jimmy Olsen. After introducing himself, the man accompanies her to a vehicle. Then they are both hooded and taken to the general's presence. The man is accused of being a criminal leader and Lois Lane is the first journalist to get an interview with him. While the woman is talking to Amaya, Jimmy is searched by his security guards and Anatoly Niazefi finds a tracker inside his camera. Immediately, the photographer is identified as a CIA agent and claims that Lois is innocent because she knows absolutely nothing about the operation. Jimmy then tries to negotiate a deal with the general, but ends up being eliminated with a shot to the head before he has a chance to speak. When he hears the shot, Python and his team, which was in disguise, sets off for the village to rescue the journalist. Meanwhile, Anatoly and his men eliminate Amaya's security guards and then set their bodies on fire. After completing the job, the gang leaves, and minutes later the CIA fires 2 missiles at the general's camp, which are destroyed by Superman before hitting their target. When he finds Lois, the woman was being used as a shield, but Superman manages to get rid of the general before he could do any harm to his beloved. Minutes later, when Python and his team arrive on the scene, they find several women in despair over the loss of their husbands, who have had their bodies incinerated. Before leaving, the journalist takes her notebook, and a few days later, all that atrocity is brought to court. A witness tells her side of the story, blaming Superman for the attack on her village and says that her parents were eventually eliminated during the invasion. When she returns home, Lois unpacks her suitcase and, looking at her notebook, realizes that it was shot during the shooting. So she decides to extract the bullet that is embedded in it and keep it as evidence. The woman is taking a shower when her boyfriend comes home with a bouquet of flowers and Lois tries to convince him to go public to clarify what happened, because people are blaming Superman for the elimination of those villagers. However, Clark claims not to care about the accusations and says he wouldn't have done anything differently because he needed to save the woman he loves. When he arrives at the Batcave, Bruce enlists Alfred's help in locating Anatoly Niazefi, a Russian man who is being sought for illicitly trading in people and weapons. The vigilant theory is that this guy will lead him to the mastermind of the crimes, who has not yet been identified. On a visit to LexCorp, Senator Finch meets Lex Luthor, who tells her about his new discovery, a mineral directly from Krypton. The sample was taken for analysis at the government base, where the body of a deceased Kryptonian visitor is kept. When General Zod was exposed to kryptonite, his cells underwent a profound biodegradation. Then Lex came up with the idea of turning the mineral into a weapon to use against Superman in the future, should it be necessary to stop him. Thanks to his revolutionary idea, Lex gains access to the wreckage of the Kryptonian ship and Zod's body to conduct studies. After the accident he suffered, Wallace lost his legs and was abandoned by his family. Now he is just a lonely and bitter man who wants revenge against Superman. One day, the young man decides to go to the sculpture of the superhero that has been built in the center of the city and graffiti it. Hours later, he appears on the news being arrested for vandalism and Clark is concerned to see what has happened, as he realizes that he is stirring up hatred in many people. That night, Bruce Wayne goes to an underground ring to find Anatoly. As expected, the man was there to watch the fights and ends up having his cell phone cloned by the vigilante. The next day, Lois storms into the conference room to inform her boss what her friends from forensics have said about the bullet that was collected from the desert shooting. Those projectiles are not resold even on the illegal market, which indicates that the American government itself is arming those rebels. So she gets a 2-day trip to Washington to prove her theory. Every night in his sleep, Bruce dreams of something related to the elimination of his parents, and this time a scary bat comes out of his dear mother's tombstone to attack him. The billionaire then wakes up scared and takes some pills to get back to sleep. The next morning, he meets with Alfred and hands him all the calls made from Anatoly's phone. After analyzing this data, Bruce comes to the conclusion that Lex Luthor is the guy who is in charge of everything, and his butler hands him an invitation to the tycoon's mansion, where a big celebration will take place. Once there, he spots Diana Prince and soon realizes that there is something fishy about that beautiful woman. Guided by Alfred, the vigilante goes down the stairs leading to the kitchen and puts a transmitter on the cables to collect some information. At this time, Mercy Graves appears and asks the guest to return to the lounge, as that area is restricted to employees. Bruce then returns upstairs and meets Clark Kent while waiting for the transfer to be completed. 7 minutes later, he receives a warning from Alfred to go get the device and Clark goes after him to investigate. However, he is distracted by a sad news report on TV, where he discovers that there is a building on fire in the center of the city. When he goes to get the device, the billionaire realizes that his drive has disappeared and spots Diana once again, so he decides to go after her. However, the woman manages to escape before he has a chance to question her. After rescuing the victims, Superman is acclaimed by the people, who feel extremely grateful to the superhero and treat him like a god. Superman's existence on Earth divides opinions. On the one hand, a large group sees him as a messianic figure who came to the planet to save humanity. However, there is a small group of people who view the alien as a threat, since he has the power to destroy the entire planet if he wishes. Frustrated by the rumors regarding Superman, Clark decides to call his mother in the middle of the night and Martha is able to comfort him. After committing vandalism on the monument erected in honor of the city's greatest superhero, Wallace is arrested, but is soon released because a stranger has posted his bail. When he gets home, he meets Lex Luthor, and not only does he get him out of prison, but the man gives him an electric wheelchair as a gift. Days later, Wallace goes to Senator Finch's office to request a press conference, where he intends to confront Superman. During a museum opening event, Diana is contemplating some ancient artifacts when Bruce shows up and asks her to return the device she stole the night before with the data he collected from Lex Luthor's mansion. The woman then says she believes Luthor has a photograph that belongs to her, but she couldn't get it because the files Bruce copied have military-grade encryption. Before she leaves, Diana states that she didn't steal the drive, she just borrowed it and Bruce will find it in the glove compartment of his car. When he arrives at his hideout, the billionaire begins the decryption and ends up falling asleep in the process. In his dream, he finds a city in ruins and run by different gangs. Batman then hires some guys to steal the kryptonite that is held by LexCorp, but falls into a trap when he goes to get the goods. At this time, a shootout occurs and another gang attacks in an attempt to steal the mineral. Immediately, the vigilante begins a battle against the soldiers, when suddenly flying monsters appear and everyone unites to capture him. Bruce is then taken to an underground bunker and is visited by Superman, who eliminates all the soldiers and then attacks his greatest rival. At this moment, Bruce wakes up startled and realizes that all the files on his drive have been decrypted. Among the numerous images, the billionaire finds a picture of a ship that is being used to transport the Kryptonian mineral. The sample found in the Indian Ocean will be taken to Lex Luthor, and Bruce intends to steal it in order to eliminate Superman, because he has enough power to decimate all of humanity. Then, on the night the shipment is taken off the ship, Batman shoots a tracker at the truck and chases it in his Batmobile, eliminating all enemies that appear in its path. During the chase, his vehicle is attacked by heavily armed men, but the car remains intact. However, when Superman appears, without even moving, he manages to stop the Batmobile and threatens the vigilante to stop his operations. After failing in his mission, Batman returns home in his wrecked vehicle and tracks the truck's location through the signal emitted by the tracker. As expected, the mineral has been taken to LexCorp's research park and Luthor already has big plans for it. At a press conference, Senator Finch, alongside Wallace, calls on Superman to come to the Senate to explain himself about what happened in the African desert. Watching the news, Clark feels undecided and asks his mother's opinion to decide whether or not to make his statement. After a long day at work, Kahina arrives home and, as she is about to get off the bus, she sees Anatoly talking to her father. Scared, the woman decides to change her fate and goes to Senator Finch's office to tell the whole truth about what happened in Africa. The hearing is about to begin when the senator discovers that Kahina has been threatened by Lex Luthor's security guards to prosecute Superman for the elimination of her family in exchange of her parents being safe. Before entering the conference room, Finch meets Luthor, who wishes her good luck at her press conference. After telling the truth to the senator, Kahina goes to the subway in order to return home. However, as the train approaches, Anatoly appears and knocks the woman down on the tracks. When Superman arrives in the meeting room, the senator thanks him for attending the hearing and also thanks Wallace for giving her the idea of promoting that meeting. The woman then states that she will expose the whole truth during that press conference, but unexpectedly Finch is overcome by a terrible feeling. As she looks at the chair reserved for Luthor, she realizes that the businessman did not attend the meeting and her suspicions that something bad is about to happen are confirmed. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs and the entire building is destroyed. After the catastrophe, Superman is the only one in that room who remains alive. The superhero then helps the few survivors who were in other rooms to get out of the building and the medical team does the rest of the work. Frustrated that he couldn't protect those people, Superman spots Lois in the crowd and flies away. That night, upon arriving at LexCorp headquarters, Luthor realizes that the place has been broken into and soon discovers that Batman was responsible for stealing his supply of kryptonite. In search of new samples of the mineral, the man enters the alien ship and manages to take command, gaining access to knowledge from thousands of different worlds. In this way, he discovers that it is possible to revive bodies through their genetic material and subjects General Zod's body to the process of metamorphosis. While the weapon that will be used to destroy Superman is being produced, Bruce trains hard to be able to confront him. During a new investigation into Lex Luthor's stolen files, he finds the photo Diana was looking for and is surprised to discover that the woman looks exactly the same as she did a century ago. In the days following the tragedy, the whole country began to wonder if Superman was complicit in the explosion. After all, he has unlimited power and yet he did nothing to protect those people. While watching the news, Lois discovers that FBI agents have found a lot of bomb-making materials in Wallace's house and are investigating whether he had any help in executing the explosion. So the idea that Superman was an accomplice has not yet been ruled out. That same day, the journalist goes to visit Wallace's home and realizes that he had been shopping before the press conference, which means that he did not know he was going to perish that day. Upon contacting Janet, she discovers that the Desert Bullet and Wallace's wheelchair were made of the same material, which is manufactured by LexCorp. Luthor was the one who implanted the bomb inside the wheelchair and coated it with lead so that Superman could not see it. One night, after leaving work, Martha realizes she is being pursued and is captured by Luthor's henchmen. The same happens to Lois Lane when she is leaving the Daily Planet building. The woman is then taken to the top of the LexCorp building, where she meets Luthor. The businessman knows that the journalist is the fastest way to get to Superman and pushes her from the top. As expected, the superhero shows up to save her and, after taking his beloved to safety, goes to account with Luthor. However, before Superman could do anything to harm him, the man reveals that he has discovered the superhero's true identity and tells him that he is with his mother. Luthor does not know where Martha is hiding, but his men have orders to eliminate her if anything bad happens to him. If he wants to save her, the hero will have to eliminate Batman, and Luthor intends to use this crime to dirty Superman's name once and for all. Meanwhile, one of the villain's henchmen places a bomb in the room where Martha is hiding, and the explosion will happen in less than 35 minutes. Immediately, the hero goes to Gotham and intends to convince Batman to help him save his mother. Otherwise, the Bat will have to perish. At that moment, Diana is in a hotel room when she receives some messages from Bruce Wayne, in which the billionaire reveals that he has found the photo she was looking for. He then asks who that woman is and sends her several files containing images of other metahumans that have already been discovered. When he meets Batman, Superman tries to explain the situation and asks for his help, but the Bat tries to hurt him and Clark returns the attack. Suddenly, machine guns appear and start firing at the superhero, who destroys them with his laser beam. Furious, Superman strikes his enemy and the vigilante uses a smokescreen to throw him off. He then fires a projectile containing a kryptonite-based gas to weaken his opponent. Now that the alien has lost his powers, Batman is able to attack him without difficulty and strikes Superman several times until he regains his strength and is able to counterattack. Bruce is about to be eliminated when he fires another shot at the superhero, and once again Clark loses his superpowers. Batman then takes the opportunity to strike him in the head and throws the alien's body to the first floor. After tying his feet, he drags him along the ground and then uses the hero's body to destroy the pillars of that ruined building. When Superman no longer has the strength to stand up, the Bat takes his kryptonite spear and intends to drive it into his chest. However, upon hearing his opponent asking for help to save Martha, the vigilante is stunned, for that is his mother's name. Furious, he asks the superhero who he is referring to. Then, Lois appears and reveals that Martha is Clark's adoptive mother. Immediately, Batman throws the spear away and promises that he will save her. Meanwhile, Superman must go after Lex Luthor. Quickly, the Dark Knight arrives at the place where the woman is being held and attacks Luthor's henchmen to rescue her. The Bat is at a great disadvantage, as the place is surrounded by armed security guards. However, he still manages to defeat them and eliminates each one of them, clearing the way to reach the hideout. When he finds Martha, he realizes that she is in Anatoly's sights. So Bruce sets the place on fire and eliminates the goons while protecting the woman with his cape. Meanwhile, Lois Lane takes the opportunity to get rid of the kryptonite spear and discards it into a lake. Upon arriving at the Kryptonian ship where Luthor is, Superman informs him that he has lost that battle, as Batman is still alive and Martha is safe. Therefore, the villain decides to use his last resort and presents his newest creation, made from the remains of General Zod. The monster then attacks Superman and the two go to face each other outside the ship. After throwing a concrete wall on top of the superhero, the creature throws its body against a building and attacks the newspaper helicopter that went there to film it. Just then, Diana is on a plane about to take off and sees Doomsday in the newspaper. Numerous police aircraft try to eliminate him, but they are all destroyed at once. Seeing the disaster, the woman decides to abandon the trip so she can intervene. Meanwhile, Superman takes the enemy into space and the army sends an atomic bomb to destroy them. That way, no human will be in danger of being hurt. After the explosion, a projectile falls east of Metropolis and the soldiers soon discover that the creature has survived the attack. Now, the monster is even stronger, as it has absorbed the energy of the bomb. Meanwhile, Superman is unconscious and floating in space. As he approaches the creature, Batman's ship is attacked, and the Bat realizes that only his spear made of kryptonite can eliminate it. So the vigilante has the idea of luring him to Gotham, but his ship is shot down and he is about to be hit by laser beams. Suddenly, Wonder Woman appears and uses her bracelets to block the attack. By this time, Superman has also managed to recover and returns to Earth with a mission to eliminate the aberration created by Luthor. Realizing her mistake, Lois runs to the lake and enters the water in an attempt to retrieve the spear. However, when Doomsday attacks, the building is destroyed and the debris causes the journalist to be trapped in the water. As the heroes team up to attack the alien general, Lois tries to return to the surface, but finds no loophole to escape. During the battle, Superman hears the woman's thuds of despair and immediately flies toward her to save her. After pulling Lois out of the lake, he goes for the spear and is already weakened just by getting close to the mineral. Then, the journalist throws the weapon away and helps Clark to his feet. A few meters away, the superhero spots his companions being beaten up by the Kryptonian monster, who seems to be completely invincible. Therefore, despite the pleas of his beloved, he decides to sacrifice himself and gathers all the rest of his strength to fly to his enemy. While Wonder Woman immobilizes Doomsday with her lasso of truth, Batman fires one of his smoke projectiles at the monster, and Superman smashes his spear into his chest. At this moment, the creature attacks him back and pierces his heart. Despite the pain, Clark does not abandon his mission and goes through the general's body with the weapon. Within minutes, both are eliminated and Lois goes into despair when she sees her boyfriend's lifeless body. After Superman's sacrifice, the entire planet is saved and Lex Luthor is finally arrested. On the day of Clark Kent's funeral, Lois is in the room where her boyfriend slept during his childhood. At this moment, Martha appears and hands her an envelope that her son had sent to surprise her. When she opens it, the journalist discovers that she would have been asked to marry him if all that tragedy had not happened. Meanwhile, Superman's wake also takes place and he is honored by the army as a great soldier. However, his coffin is empty, because Clark's real body was buried on the farm where he grew up. A few feet away, Bruce and Diana mourn the elimination of their companion. The billionaire feels he has failed Clark and blames himself for his elimination. In his vision, one way to redeem himself is by gathering other metahumans so they can fight together for the sake of humanity. So he asks Diana to help him accomplish this mission.